Hey, everybody. I was doing my banking. Ooh, so I feel I've got something accomplished. So they're still waiting, is still scrolling with the slideshow. So I think it's now 2 p.m. East Coast, which is a little bit longer than lunch than expected. I believe the judge wanted to get started sooner than a full lunch. Guess it didn't happen. So I'm going to throw up what? I'm going to throw up the scrolling. Let's do that much for you. Once I get it up there, get rid of that. You see those lovely boys. Do. Okay, so we will just watch the scrolling. Hopefully, it won't be too much longer. We'll see what happens. And there he goes. We're going to the seal of state of Michigan. Okay, let's give it a moment for it to kick in. So as stated earlier, we are going to be covering some additional witnesses this afternoon. I don't know how long it's going to go, but it is day 4, part 2. And as soon as the judge gets in the courtroom, then they'll probably proceed. That's your intro. Enjoy it.
All rise, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are commencing a bit early. I will do that whenever everyone is here. And we don't have any other docket items to do. Who is your first witness?
Detective Mike Peterson. Yes, I do.
Please be seated. Give me your first and last name, spelled below for the record.
Michael Peterson, Michael Peterson.
Peterson, I'm assuming that you've been in a few courtrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone is a little uniquely different. And if not for any other reason, because it's a different judge. But this happens to be a courtroom. We don't have video recording, we just have audio. So it will be very, very important that you speak your answers. And it may be a yes or no, instead of or shrugging your shoulders, shaking your head. Microphone in front of you does not amplify your voice. It merely is the mechanism for recording for the purposes of transcript. So it'll be very important that you speak loudly.
Yes, ma'am.
Be aware.
Sir, where are you employed?
With the Michigan State Police.
What is your current title?
I'm a detective sergeant.
What do you do in that role?
I am responsible for investigating complex crimes or sensitive crimes that would either take a trooper off the road for lengthy periods of time or involve high-profile individuals.
When you say complex type of cases, can you give me some examples?
Sure, I've investigated homicides, multiple homicides, murder for hires, armed robberies, cases that have a lot of evidence and require a lot of follow-up.
You indicated you're a detective.
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been a detective?
Since 2014.
How long have you been with Michigan State Police throughout your career?
Since 1998.
Can you walk me through your career?
Sure. I entered the 116th Trooper Recruit School in 1998. I graduated in July, and I became a road trooper. I worked on the road for 16 years. During that time, I also worked on Mackinac Island. I was an instructor at the training academy a couple times. I was on the tobacco tax investigation team, and I was a FTO field training officer for new troopers during that time.
Thank you.
And then after that, I became a detective in 2014.
During the course of your career, it sounds like you've done death investigations.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I say death investigations, can you tell me what types of deaths?
I've done accidental deaths, car accidents. I've investigated suicides as well as homicides and drug overdoses.
So when you talk about investigating suicides, is there typically a point in time where you would locate that individual?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and would that be in almost every suicide you've investigated?
Yes, ma'am. Well, if it's suicide, yes, we'd have to find the body. Yes.
Why is that?
Well, in order to do that, we'd have to for the medical examiner to determine it a suicide, we'd have to know the injuries and things of that nature.
And you said you've investigated accidental deaths and homicides, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I've heard the term suspicious death before. Do you know what that term means?
It is a death where it is suspected that some sort of foul play or person was responsible, but it has to be proven.
When you come across a death in the capacity of your job and you deem that it's a suspicious death, what do you do?
We investigate, we start with a victimology, which is we learn everything we can about that person's life, and we start with their last contacts and their people closest to them and work our way out. We also investigate the crime scene, collect evidence, and based on all that, then the body is sent to the medical examiner for an autopsy, and the medical examiner then, based on the injuries that he's able to see on the body, and comparing that to the information that we have gathered from the scene and from statements made from everyone, makes a determination of cause of death and manner of death.
Okay. so he makes a determination as to the cause and manner of death.
Yes.
Sounds like a silly question, but can you tell me what the cause of death could be?
Sure.
Examples.
You could have a homicide, which is a direct killing of someone, an intentional killing. I'm sorry, that would be manner. The cause would be, for example, a gunshot wound. It could be a strangulation. It could be drowning. If you can imagine any way a person can die, that would be the cause of death.
Okay. And the manner of death? Give me examples.
Sure. Manner of death, you would have natural causes or accidental death, suicide, or homicide.
When you have a case where the medical examiner reports back to you that the cause of death would be a homicide, would that be important to you as the investigator?
Yes, it would.
Why is that?
Well, the medical examiner, if he were to come back and say that a case is natural, if we're talking, you mentioned before, you brought up a suspicious death. If it's suspicious, but he determines that it's natural, say the subject had a heart attack, well, then it would rule out that this was a homicide. However, if he found obvious injuries on the subject, the deceased subject, that there's no other way to account for them but by the hands of someone else, then he'd rule it a homicide. So that would be important. It is crucial for us to determine for our case.
And that would be considered a piece of evidence for your case.
Yes, ma'am.
How many homicide trials during the course of your career have you either been a part of or as the direct investigator or been a part of on the outside of?
Probably 8, roughly.
And have you attended all of those trials?
Yes, ma'am.
And does the medical examiner testify at those trials as to the cause and manner of death?
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to, Your Honor, may I approach the witness? So I've handed you People's Exhibit 47. Now, just to be clear, Your Honor, Mr. Amadeo and I have already stipulated to the admissibility of this for preliminary exam purposes.
I am in receipt of it, Your Honor. I have reviewed that just step.
So just to be clear, sir, you did not create this report, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you read the title on the very first cover page of what this document is, what this report is?
It is a forensic examination report.
And for what case number?
Case number CCU-3579-2025.
And this packet, this exhibit that I've handed you contains 15 pages, correct? If you can look at the last page. And
Yes, the last page is 15, yes.
can I have you flip to page number 3? Can you please identify which item this report relates to?
This report relates to a Hitachi, this is 40 gigabyte Hitachi HG.E01. That's a Hitachi computer.
Thank you. I'm going to have you turn to page 4 of that report. Can you tell me what the very top of that page identifies this document?
Yahoo Diagnostic Chats.
And each chat is labeled as a record, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I want you to look at the first one, record 1, and the gray portion of that. Tell me what information each record gives.
So record number 1 says tags, and it is of interest. Local user is EQCILDAAN.
I'm going to stop you there real quick.
Sure.
Can you just read the record, the information that's given in the
gray
gray shaded portion, please?
Yes, ma'am. Tags, local user, sender, recipient, chat sent, date/time, local time, message, command, type, source, location, evidence number, recovery method, item ID.
And can I have you flip to page 15 of that document?
The 1-5.
1-5, I'm sorry. And that ends with record number what?
Record number 42.
Okay, and so for records 1 through 42, that gray portion with the information that would be for each record is consistent, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to start with record number 1. Can you identify who the sender of that Yahoo diagnostic chat?
Sorry, it seems that was this morning's session re-recording. So I tried to pull up a different page, close it out. And that should leave me one version. Hello. And let's see if this is this afternoon's. I do apologize, but it kind of, I figured it would just be on the same channel. So I left it where it was. Oh, please. We'll try it again and see if it starts off again. Then I'm going to assume that there's no afternoon session. So let's just watch and see what this stream looks like. Thank you for your understanding.
We're probably a couple minutes early.
She's on.
She's on? Okay.
And perfect. Somebody's crazy hearing her first.
That's what I thought it was.
You never know when you can do it.
Guess I should sit.
All rise, please.
Please be seated. All right, we have our next witness who is appearing via Zoom. This there any objection to her appearance and testimony by this?
There is none from the defense, Your Honor.
Ma'am, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ma'am, please give me your full name and spell both for the purposes of the record.
My name is Michelle Lampier, Michelle, Lampier, Lamphere.
Any question?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Lampier. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Pretty good, thank you. Do you know John Skelton?
I do know
How-
John Skelton.
How do you know John Skelton?
We were married for a period of time.
When were you married?
We were married from April of 1992 until, I think, September of 2001.
And prior to the
I think
marriage,
September. Sure.
prior to the marriage, how long had you known him for?
We had known each other for 4 months.
When you first married him, where were you living at?
We were living in Washington, D.C.
And what were you doing there?
I was in the Air Force. John was in the Army.
How long did you live in Washington, D.C. for?
We lived in Washington, D.C. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a total of 3 years.
And how about John Skelton?
John had moved to Hawaii, we think about 6 months before I moved from the States.
And the two of you have a daughter, is that correct? Or you had a daughter?
We do.
And when was she born?
She was born August of 1993.
And what is her first name?
Her first name at birth was Catherine. Her legal name change is Katie.
So when did you move? You said to what location at what time?
I moved to California, Vacaville area in 1995.
And when did you and Mr. Skelton get back in the same household together on a regular basis?
It would have probably been, I'm really not entirely sure. I think probably the end of 1995 or kind of early in 1996
And where would that have been at?
in Vacaville, California.
At this time, what is your employment?
I was still in the Air Force.
And how about Mr. Skelton?
When I first moved to California, he was still in the Army, and then he got out of the Army and moved to California.
To be with you and Katie?
Yes.
All right. And how long were you at that location for?
We were there for almost 2 years, from 95 to 97.
Where did you go next?
Then we moved to Alaska.
And why did you go there?
Opportunity. So I had the opportunity to get out of the Air Force, and then I had the opportunity, or we had the opportunity to move to Alaska for a job. So we thought it was kind of one of those once in a lifetime things. So that's what we decided to do.
And how long were you in Alaska for?
We were in Alaska from 1997 to 2000.
And during that period of time, all three of you were in the same household?
Yes, until the very end of it, but yes.
And at that point in time, in 2000, beginning of 2001, something along those lines, Did you and he separate?
He did.
And walk us through what happens next in your travels and his travels.
So what happened when we separated, I was moving to Boston, and I was moving there without really having known anybody. I was moving to a person that I had met online and didn't really know him or his family. And so I had decided to let Katie go to Michigan with John because he was going to his family there in Michigan. And then his family knew Katie also, and she knew them. And so I felt much safer and more comfortable with her going to Michigan with family than going to Boston with strangers.
And Katie was about 7 now?
She would have been about 7, yes. Probably right at that point of 6 to 7.
So as you're setting up your new residence in Boston, you said, Massachusetts?
Yes,
Mr. Skelton comes from Alaska and resettles in the Morenci, Michigan area. Is that accurate?
yes.
Okay. Do you know where he's living at this point in time?
When he first moved there, I believe he stayed with, like when he first moved there, if I recall correctly, and it's been a long time, but I believe he stayed with his family. I would guess his Uncle Richard and Aunt Charlie. And then after that, he did, I'm not sure if he met Tanya first and then moved out into his own place, or if he moved into his own place and then met Tanya, but he didn't stay too long with his family before he got his own place and started getting settled.
Now, during the course of the marriage at the various locations, did you and John get along okay?
Yes, for the most part.
What, if any, problems were there?
The only problems really mainly were drinking and the problems that stem from drinking.
By John, you're talking about?
Yes.
Are you able to provide any examples of what you're talking about?
You mean like the extent of drinking, or what do you mean by examples? What exactly are you wanting?
Problems that arose due to his drinking.
Well, before we got married, my mother actually met him while he was in the psych ward at Walter Reed Army Medical Center because he had overdosed on alcohol during his bachelor party and had to be admitted to the hospital via ambulance. And then he spent a week as an inpatient.
At that time?
I'm sorry, you cut out.
At that time, a week?
Yes.
Okay. And how long?
So,
Go ahead, finish up.
I was just gonna say, and so then he was, I think from that, the Army had put him on kind of a rehab program.
What was the next
So-
incident after that you're remembering about his alcohol issues?
There was another incident where he'd been extremely intoxicated playing racquetball at an apartment complex that we lived in, and he ended up having to go to the emergency room after getting hit by one of the balls in the eye, and his eye got extremely swollen. So, but he was extremely drunk at that point, and before we took him, he would get sometimes kind of angry or upset when he was highly intoxicated. And so he had kicked out the trellis of the balcony of the apartment on that occasion before we took him to the ER because of the racquetball.
Roughly how long after the week or so he spent in rehab did that occur?
That would have been several months after that, because that was in our first apartment that we lived in.
Okay, was there another incident that occurred subsequent to that?
There was an incident, probably the biggest incident was when we were living still at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland, and that was where he had been extremely intoxicated at a party, and that ended up with his arrest because he had brought out a loaded shotgun, and the party goers or the people at the party, I had felt extremely threatened. He came and got it. Well, I had already left the party when he came and got it and took the gun back to the party, and cops were called for that, and he was arrested for that and then permanently banned from Andrews Air Force Base.
How did he get a hold of this shotgun?
It was his, it belonged to him.
Where was it at?
It was in our closet,
Like in a bedroom?
in our bedroom closet, the master bedroom closet.
And did you see this happen?
I didn't, so I was in bed asleep, and John had the people who were hosting the party a couple doors down from us had brought him home because he was, had drank and was kind of belligerent. So they brought him home. And he came up, they put him on the couch, which was downstairs, the living room couch, which was downstairs. And then they brought him, and then he came upstairs and just kind of leaned in the bed and said something to me. And then I could feel him push himself back off the bed. And I don't know what instinct it was, but I instantly got up out of the bed and flipped on the light, and I saw him reaching into the closet. So I knew exactly what was in the closet. So I put the light back off, ran down the hall and grabbed Katie out of her crib, and then ran back to the neighbors, asking, kind of yelling for them to call the police. So, so I didn't actually see him physically grab the gun. I saw him physically grabbing into the closet, and the result was he came out with a gun.
And that was a situation where he was subsequently arrested?
Yes.
Okay. What happens next in this type of intoxication-related incidents? Was there another one?
That was probably the biggest one. There were several, when we lived in Alaska, I know we had gone to the neighbors and they had asked me not to bring him to other parties again because of his drinking. I know he would drink and drive occasionally, or sometimes drink and drive, and he had knocked out like the neighbors' mailboxes while driving intoxicated one time. One time he was driving back from Walter Reed to Andrews Air Force Base, and he told me, and I did not witness this, but he had told me he was pretending to be a cop and pulling people over, like by flashing his lights on the highway.
Did a situation occur at one point in time that involved some sort of a pipe wrench or a wrench of some nature?
Oh, so I guess let me back up. The incident with the truck was actually our second apartment. Our very first apartment, yes, that was shortly after we got married. He had found a very large pipe wrench when he was walking home from work or from the club at work. And that particular instant, he would get kind of belligerent when he drinks. He gets kind of angry or upset. And so this particular incident with this pipe wrench, and it was one of those very big pipe wrenches. And he was, I don't know if he was threatening me or he was just behaving threatening, but he put a hole in the wall next to my head with the pipe wrench and then sat there for the next hour, hour and a half, telling me about this pipe wrench. And I just had to sit there and listen because there was already a hole in the wall next to my head and I was afraid to move.
How big a pipe wrench are we talking about? Can you describe the length or size of
It
it?
was probably, I mean, it was one of the big pipe wrenches. It was probably at least a good 2 feet.
2 feet long? I know you're on Zoom, but you're trying to show something about 2 feet
Oh,
long?
sorry. Yes, probably about 2 feet long. And I would say the wrench part of it was probably at least, I mean, I was 19 years old. I didn't know what measurements were, but probably a good 6 inches or so.
And at some
So
point,
there were just numerous incidents like that. Those were just kind of some of the examples. And John did not drink all the time. He was not a daily drinker, but when he did drink, he didn't stop drinking
until what?
until he passed out.
Was there some incident involving a dog as well?
Yes. So this was on Katie's birthday. She'd had a couple friends stayed overnight, and we had a big black lab rescue dog, and he was a puppy. But he was a big puppy. He was probably stood waist high, and so the day after Katie's little birthday party, John was going to take her friends home. And when we had opened the door, the dog and I went out onto the porch. This was when we lived in Alaska. The porch, I was standing on the porch and the dog ran out the door and kind of knocked me off the porch and I sprained my ankle. And so, and the dog kind of ran off. And so I really didn't think much of it. My ankle was sprained. So I went back into the house. John carried on and took the kids home. There were 2 girls and Katie went with them. And so a little bit later, I called the mother of one of the girls and I was just like, oh, I'm sitting here laid up because Alex, that was the name of the dog, knocked me off the porch. And so I've got to go find him because he ran off. And Bobby, that was my friend's name, said, Michelle, John was here. He dropped Katie and Brittany off and he had the dog in the car and the gun. And so, so basically John had taken the dog, had found the dog, taken the dog and took him out to the woods and shot him.
Did he tell you that?
Afterwards, well, when I confronted him about it, and so.
Did he say what?
He didn't tell me about it ahead of time. No, I didn't know until Bobby told me that he had the dog and the gun, and then when he came back home and he only had Katie and the gun and not the dog, I knew it happened and confronted him about it, and his excuse was that the dog had hurt me, and so therefore at the time.
How old was that dog?
He was probably 8 months old, 9 months old. He was a puppy.
So you're in Massachusetts, he's in Morenci. We're talking 2000, year 2000 now?
Yes.
And at some point in time, a divorce is filed in Lenawee County by John Skelton, is that correct?
Yes.
And then there's also some hearings involving custody of Katie. Is that also correct?
Yes.
So tell us how.
The hearings, I don't know if they were hearings. We had friend of the court visits. We went through the friend of the court for the custody evaluation.
At some point, did someone contact you and make you aware that they were concerned about Katie?
Yes.
Tell us about that, please.
Well, John's family would kind of keep tabs on Katie. And they had called me to let me know that he was out, he would have her out with him while he was drinking or going to parties and that kind of thing. That he would have her out walking in the fields at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning when they would be leaving these parties, and he would be extremely intoxicated. They told me about times where his babysitter, and I think his babysitter lived down the road from where Uncle Richard and Aunt Charlie and Lisa and Tim lived. I think the babysitter lived down the road from there, but there were times where the babysitter hadn't let John pick Katie up because he would show up at her door. I guess one time he showed up so drunk he had urinated on himself, and so the babysitter wouldn't release Katie to him.
So with all this information supplied to you, what did you do? What decision did you make at that point in time?
So at that point in time, I decided that I already had a lawyer for the divorce, and so he had advised me that since we didn't have a custody agreement, that I should go and get Katie, because then if I brought her back to Boston, we could immediately file for custody there, and that meant that everything would have to take place there in Boston as far as custody went, and he couldn't, if we immediately filed the moment I crossed back into the state line, then he couldn't just come and take her. I could come to Michigan and take her because we had no custody agreement in place.
That was your lawyer?
So,
That was your lawyer?
yeah,
in
that was my
Massachusetts?
lawyer in Boston.
Okay.
In
So-
Boston.
What happens next?
So I drove to Michigan, and I had tried to take her out of school. And of course, the school did the right thing and called John. And so John came up there, and then that was when he immediately filed the custody for custody. And so then we had to go basically that route through the state of Michigan or through Morenci.
And so what happens next?
So then we start going through the friend of the court, and we get, evaluated. Katie gets evaluated. Tanya, John and Tanya were definitely very well established as a couple by then, and so Tanya was part of those evaluations also.
So did you hire an attorney in Michigan?
I do not recall. I believe I only had the attorney in Massachusetts who was representing.
Let me refresh
I
your
do
memory
not
if I can,
recall.
just a bit.
Okay.
There's court pleadings in your name and John's name in which Michael McFarland was your attorney. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah,
You remember
Yes.
that now?
I do remember his name, yes.
Okay. As these hearings go forward with the front of the court, or meetings, I guess, what word do you want to use, is tell us what develops and what happens with the custody situation.
So we did our evaluations. At one point, John and I had conversations specifically regarding Tanya, because Tanya had her own history. And so, John wanted me to assure me that Tanya was not a threat to Katie. He didn't want that playing a part in my comfort with Katie being there, and it really didn't play a part in my discomfort. I've never really held anything against Tanya.
So you can see that since the case, they don't have the remains of the three boys, the prosecution is trying to build the case through all these witnesses and past history based on John Skelton to show what kind of person he is or was. Because as you recall, this is a 15-plus-year-old case where his boys have gone missing, and currently they do have death certificates official ones. So the prosecution's moving forward. But the issue is they've got to really build a very strong case for the judge to say, yes, I'm going to bind this over for trial. She's describing a guy that drives me crazy, right? How do you do that? How do you do all these things? And I don't know how long she stayed with him, but they were both military. So, basic training, they break you down, build you back up. And if you stay in for any length of time, you become a type of person, right? Responsible, accountable, knowing what you do for a living, right? Protecting the country, that kind of thing. She seems level-headed. So I was very much surprised that he didn't turn out better, And again, when you're hearing this kind of testimony from the witnesses, you realize, there's something to this guy. And I would agree it should go to trial. They really need to bring this home, because if not, who knows what it's going to be like in the future, right? Because his current charges have run out, I believe, or will be running out relatively soon. So unless they have him on trial and he is found guilty on these alleged charges, no, they're real charges, but the alleged accusations, I should say, it makes you stop and think, right? He's going to be out in the world. And I don't know how reformed he's coming out from prison is, right? Or jail, prison, right? So I just wanted to pipe that in there, give you some food for thought, and it helps me to think out loud too. So thanks for listening. Let me go back to the testimony.
So I'm not sure how their evaluations went. I know how my own evaluations went, and at one point, my lawyer called me and had said, it does not matter to me how you get here, whether you walk, crawl, get on a plane, get on a bus, whatever, but you need to get here immediately and pick up your daughter. And so I guess I don't know what the friend of the court evaluations were. I do know that after that, initially John was given, I believe, supervised visits with Katie. So he had to have his Aunt Lisa present when he was visiting with Katie. Eventually everything got worked out through the courts and it was unsupervised visits, just regular custody visits. But that was the initial evaluation from the friend of the court.
So when you were going through this process, as it was developing with the custody discussions, meetings at the front of the court's office, what was John saying about Tanya?
I mean, he supported her, and he was saying, that it was just a mistake that she had made. She had been going through her own very rough time, emotionally rough time, and she made just a genuine error in judgment. He had sent me her evaluation that was done. I guess, I don't know if it was by her own therapist or the court-appointed therapist. I'm not really sure, but he had sent me that so that I could look over that to see the professional's opinion about Tanya and how they didn't feel like she was a threat. And so I want to say Tanya was actually pregnant at the time that all of this was going on, like very early in her first pregnancy with John.
Okay, so you were kind enough to provide us with a document that John gave to you from the Samaritan Counseling Center regarding Tanya, then Tanya Derby, is that correct?
Yes. So that would be what I'm talking about, is that evaluation
And that was given to you by who?
by John.
And the point of him giving that to you, he indicated, was to what?
In support of Tanya, to just prove or show that she was not a threat to kids, that she wasn't an actual child predator or child molester. She had made a mistake and moved on. Okay,
hold on just a minute, Ms. Lempier. Your Honor, Exhibit 57, which has already been admitted into evidence by stipulation.
Yeah.
I'm gonna approach the court, if it's okay, and give this to you so you can review this while this is going on. So after the time that you had obtained custody, eventually there was a divorce that was finalized, correct? And
Yes.
you and Mr. Skelton were no longer married, and you had physical custody of Katie.
Correct.
And she would have been either 7 or 8 years old by now, right?
Yes.
The divorce judgment would have allowed Mr. Skelton parenting time.
Yes.
And by this point in time, you were back living in Massachusetts with Katie, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
How did the visitation or parenting time go with Mr. Skelton and Katie?
She did go out to go visit him occasionally. There probably was not a ton of parenting time. It was difficult for Katie to get to him. He had his new family started, and so I know that there were some financial issues going on at the time. Both of us had ended up filing for bankruptcy due to our marital debt, and so but she did go visit him, and through the course of the years, she did, meet her brothers, and she did go visit him. There wasn't a whole lot of act as time went on. I mean, John was pretty upset for losing custody, and
Did he ever make any statements to you about his position as being potentially a part-time father?
yes, John was not at all, that he had said numerous times that he would never be a part-time father.
And as time went on with Katie, did his activity, his participation in her life gradually, slowly get less and less?
Yes.
And did he blame someone for that?
John had a very, maybe volatile relationship with his father. His father was in the Navy and was gone for a huge portion of John's life. And then when his father was there, he was not overly affectionate. And so that really had an impact on John's view of being a father. And that's where he didn't want his kids to have that same kind of relationship with him that he had had with his father. That's why he had said he would never be a part-time father, because his was, and it wasn't a good relationship.
This is all information that John said to you.
Yes.
So as he became more and more of a part-time father with Katie, what did John say anything at all to you about that?
We had a discussion about it one time, and his response was that, Katie it didn't have to be him making all the effort. Katie could certainly pick up the phone and make the effort herself. She was a kid. She was, 7, 8, 9 years old, and I wasn't, because I wasn't exactly enamored with John at his parenting. I didn't push Katie to continuously pursue a relationship. I felt like that was something that should be more of John's responsibility. I didn't discourage her. I never told her not to call her dad or whatever. But I didn't make a huge effort to make sure that she did either. And John, that was his thing. Well, Katie could certainly pick up the phone and call me. It doesn't have to be me.
Did John call very often?
No.
How often did he call, if you recall?
I don't really recall, but I would say, probably once every few months.
Was there a child support order he was required to pay to you?
There was, yes.
Do you recall whether it was very much?
I want to say it was around, I think it was $73 a week, I think.
Did he pay that regularly to you?
He did for a bit, and then, something happened with his employment. I think he, lost employment. He had an incident when he was a truck driver. He had an incident. And I'm not sure if it was a drinking and driving incident, but he had lost his employment, and I didn't get child support then. When he did have local employment, his family would let me know where he was working, and so I could contact the employers and they could garnish his paychecks. I did, for one period of time, forgive the child support debt, and so then I still didn't get it, on any sort of regular basis. And they asked me again if I would forgive it. And at that point, I was like, well, no, you do have a child, whether or not you want to acknowledge you have a child, you can still pay the child you have.
So someone reached out to you to see if you would forgive child support that John owed to you for Katie's support?
Yes.
Do you know who reached out to you?
Well, it would have been John.
Would Tanya have ever reached out and had a discussion with you about that?
Potentially, but I don't recall that she did. Tanya and I didn't really have a lot of conversations.
So when custody was awarded to you following those front of the court meetings, do you know whether or not at that time if Tanya was pregnant with Andrew?
I believe she was. I'm pretty sure that one of the first times I met Tanya was there going to those, either when I came and tried to take Katie or when we went to the front of the court. And yes, she was already pregnant.
What, if anything, you think that played in these child support, parenting time, lessening over the years with John?
I think that Katie was out of sight and out of mind, and he had other children that he needed to concentrate on.
That he didn't have to be a part-time father with?
Right, to be a full-time father.
As time wore on, did you become aware that there was some marital difficulties with John and Tanya?
Not really. I didn't have a very close relationship with them at this point. I'm not sure. I do not recall if his sister, Lucinda, had mentioned anything to me or not, because I have kept relationships with his sister and his mother. But it wasn't really anything that I considered part of my business, and so it's not something I asked about or questioned.
So did, you said you kept a relationship alive with Lucinda and John's sister and Roxanne, his mother?
Yes,
Did Katie?
yes.
Tell us about that. How was that arranged and how did you facilitate that?
Katie has always tried to stay close to, especially her grandfather and her Aunt Lou. She would go down there and visit them, spend time down there with them over some of her school breaks and that kind of thing. And they would talk periodically on the phone. And so, and I just maintained a relationship with them because of Katie. And so they didn't really view that, that whatever happened between John and I was our business, and it didn't really have an impact on them. I mean, it didn't need to impact my relationship with them just because John and I didn't have a relationship. We still mutually had Katie. And so we tried to, I guess, for lack of a better word, co-family together.
Okay, Ms. Lampier, I'm gonna stop questioning at this point in time. Now, Mr. Amadeo may have some questions for you next, okay?
Okay.
Good doing, Ms. Lampier. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
Good. So how long were you and John married?
We were married in April of 1992,
And you were married about 9 years?
about 9 years, correct?
And did you say you only knew each other 4 months before getting married?
Yes.
Is it like a whirlwind romance?
Well, we were both I was in school actually on his Army base. And so we knew there was a high likelihood that I would be going elsewhere unless we got married. And so, yep, so it was very much a whirlwind romance, and we did it so we could not be separated. So.
Now, when you guys broke up, got divorced and such, was John upset about being a part-time father, as Mr. Hartong mentioned?
Yes.
And do you know why he was upset about being a part-time father?
Yep, as I have mentioned before, I mean, he was very upset about losing custody. And he just, being a part-time father was something that had a kind of negative connotation for him because of his relationship with his dad, and his dad having been gone so much of his life through his Navy career. And so John took that very negatively, and they didn't have us, his father was not overly emotional type of person. He didn't, tell John all the time how much he loved him or anything like that. Never told him he loved him when he was there. And so John just was determined that he was not going to have that sort of relationship with his own kid.
Did John ever try to keep Katie from you?
There was one time where we were moving from one apartment to another. Katie was 4 months old, and John we were moving, and so John's mother came up to take Katie down to Florida for the week. And I did not know that he had been having conversations with his mother that she was just going to keep Katie and not bring her back because John was actually going to divorce me because I no longer like to party and drink like he did. I had settled down too much after having Katie, and so he didn't think it was a very viable relationship for us anymore, and he was going to file for divorce and take custody of Katie.
Now, you mentioned you had a relationship with Roxanne, his mother, correct?
Yes.
And Lucinda, his sister?
Yes.
How would you describe a relationship? Were you guys friends? Were you like family members? How was it during the marriage? And more importantly, how was it after the marriage?
So Roxanne and I started out kind of rocky. And then we became family. And John's sister Lucinda, I mean, we've always been friends or family. We got along. Anytime we saw them, we hung out together or whatever, we could have a good time. Roxanne and I were the ones that we started out a little difficult, and we had to work out on that relationship, and we did, and we became close, especially after Katie was born, because that was her grandchild, and she very much loved her grandchildren.
And would you still consider them friends today?
I do. I mean, it's a little more strained now because of this entire situation, but I do still have contact with them. I do still talk to them. When John's father passed away, I took Katie down there so that she could be with him, and I stayed with Lucinda and certainly visited with Roxanne.
When John took Katie to Florida, was Katie harmed in any way?
No.
Did you ever fear John was going to harm Katie?
Did I ever fear that John was going to harm Katie?
Yes.
No. I feared it only after she was in Michigan with him alone and I knew about the drinking and him not taking care of her so well when he was drinking. And that's because I know how drunk he gets.
Okay. You mentioned
So I have those concerns.
You mentioned this racquetball incident. Can you elaborate on that? What actually happened?
So I don't recall if he was playing with somebody. It was very, very late at night. I don't recall if he was playing with somebody or if he was down at the racquetball court of the apartment complex that we lived in Silver Springs. I don't recall if he was by himself or if he was playing with somebody. But the ball, and you know, racquetballs are hit at a very high rate of speed and they have a high impact, and this one hit him in the eye. And so he had been very inebriated that night and had gone down there because he was agitated about something, and that was why he had kicked out the trellis of the balcony. And then he went down to the racquetball courts, I guess, to like blow off steam or whatever. But so when he came back, his eye looked like the racquetball had stayed under his eyelids. I mean, it was so swollen. It was just huge. So we took him to the emergency room there at Walter Reed.
Now, you also mentioned a psych ward doing him being intoxicated. Can you elaborate on that?
Yep. So when he had his bachelor party it was the weekend before we were getting married, and he had been drinking. It was his bachelor party, and he had gotten extremely intoxicated to the point where when they picked him up in the ambulance, and we're talking like we were in the dorm rooms at Walter Reed. We were in the dorm rooms on the base, and they had to get an ambulance to come and pick him up in the dorm room and take him right there to the hospital. And he died 3 times in the ambulance on the way to the hospital from his inebriation. And so they he spent a few days in recovery, but they put him in there basically for the alcohol poisoning observation. And he was there for a week. He was there until the day before our wedding.
Now, you mentioned the child support hearing. Do you remember who your jurors was, who the judge was during the child support case?
I do not.
Okay. If I told you Margaret Nelly, would that name sound familiar at all?
Well, I can
I
tell
mean,
you,
that
Councilman
does
can
not.
tell you from this document, it would have been Harvey Casella.
That name sounds familiar.
Harvey Kaselka was his lawyer during the divorce, so I'm just...
That's right.
Yeah.
That's all correct.
So,
And we would stipulate to that.
Well, the stipulation for temporary custody is signed by Harvey A. Koselka.
and we would
as the
stipulate,
Judge.
and we would also stipulate to the fact that Harvey was his lawyer initially in the divorce, correct?
And divorce with Candy.
Tanya.
With the team, but in this matter, John R. Skelton versus Michelle Skelton, Harvey was the
Jurist.
jurist.
You mentioned the once-in-a-lifetime job in Alaska. What was the once-in-a-lifetime job?
It is, I'm a histopathology technician, and there happens to have been an opening at the Federal Indian Health Services Hospital there. And so I applied, and they actually interviewed me and offered me a job. And so it was kind of like, wow, I have the opportunity, or we have the opportunity to go to Alaska. And
Was John happy about that?
yes, we both were.
And did you go to Alaska?
Yes,
How long did you guys stay in Alaska?
we were there for about 3 years, from 97 to 2000.
How was it in Alaska? Was everything you hoped for?
It was everything we'd hoped for and more. Most gorgeous place on earth.
As for the current situation, in this case, do you have any firsthand knowledge of anything?
I do not,
Have the
not firsthand knowledge. I have the knowledge that, that I've been told.
and who told you?
The internet told me, the reporters told me, the podcasters told me, the families have told me.
What have the families told you, and what family are you speaking of specifically?
I speak of John's family.
What did John's family tell you?
Ron, I'm gonna object. I'm not, this is hearsay at this point.
It's kind of hearsay upon hearsay. Counsel?
I'll move on. So just to be clear, have the police told you about this case?
Yes,
How many times have
the
you been interviewed?
FBI has talked to me about this case. The police have talked to me about this case.
How many times do you think you've been interviewed by law enforcement, if you know?
I think 4 times, either 3 times or 4 times. I know the FBI interviews me more than once in the beginning. And then I have been interviewed by a detective more recently,
How recently?
within the last few months.
Who was the detective that interviewed you in the last couple of months?
Can I look at my phone? I can probably tell you his name. I don't remember it offhand.
I know that. Would it be Mike Peterson?
That sounds right.
And what was the conversation, without getting into specifics, what was the topic of the conversation? He asked you if you had the information?
Just history, the same kinds of things that you guys are asking me here. And yes, he asked if I had any knowledge of what could have happened, that kind of thing.
What did you share
That
with him?
answer, probably, no, I don't.
Did he tell you his theory on the case, or did he simply ask you what your thoughts
No.
were?
He simply asked me my thoughts.
Nothing further, thank you.
He wouldn't actually talk about his side at all, so.
Correct?
Thank you, Ron. So you mentioned a situation about 4 months after you were married, or maybe 4 months after Katie was born, that John was gonna divorce you because you stopped partying with him?
Yep, Katie was 4 months old. So it was 4 months after Katie was born.
He was arranging to have his mother to take Katie to Florida and stay with his mother?
Yeah.
How did you find this out?
He told me after Katie had already gone to Florida, because we were moving our apartment. And so we had decided together that his mother would come and take Katie down to Florida with her for a week while we were moving, since we would be so busy packing and getting our furniture moved and all of that kind of stuff. And so while we were in the middle of moving, he said, oh, by the way, I'm filing for divorce and I'm gonna take custody and Katie is gonna stay with my mother.
And what did you say to him?
I said, bro, please don't. And I begged not to get divorced. I was, young and didn't know any better. I just thought that could happen. I didn't know at that time that there was a such thing as custody fights. I just thought, oh no, I'm not gonna lose my daughter, so I'll stay married because I'm not gonna lose my daughter.
And when the divorce was filed in Michigan years later, John was the plaintiff in that case and you were the defendant, is that correct?
Yes. If that's what it says on those papers that the judge has, that's what it is.
Did
I'm not sure.
Mr. Amadeo?
I mean, he filed and I didn't.
Yes.
Okay, then yes.
Did Mr. Amadeo ask you a question along the lines whether or not you had any concern about harm to Katie by John? You recall that question?
Yes.
Didn't something happen in the bedroom once?
There was a comment made by Katie when she was very young. And I had discussed that comment with the friend of the court. I brought that comment up to the friend of the court. But after Katie had made that comment, and it was a sexual comment, it was sexual in nature. She was very young. I had to kind of evaluate that situation to decide whether or not I thought something was going on, whether or not I thought he was doing something. And Katie was not distressed. Katie was not, her demeanor had not changed, her things like that had not changed. And so I didn't take it to authorities. I did let the friend of the court know that that was a comment that had been made. And so I feel certain that the friend of the court probably talked to her about it when she was being evaluated by them, but I was not privy to that conversation.
Does Katie have a relationship with her father at this stage of life?
No.
Is John still her legal father?
No.
Can you explain that?
So once Katie got older and became an adult, she asked my husband if he would legally adopt her. And so he did. Because she didn't at that point have, and had not had a relationship with John for a very long time. And so.
And what if you know, what was John's reaction to that?
I was told that he was very angry and very hurt and very upset. And so.
Who told you that?
It was probably Lucinda. It might have been his mom. I don't know if she told Katie and then Katie told me. That's probably the most logical thing, is that his mother was extremely upset about it too. And so it was probably his mother that told Katie, and then Katie told me.
Did you yourself have any discussion with either Roxanne, Skelton, or Lucinda about this issue?
No, and I don't recall that I did. I know we had to send a notification to John, like a legal notification to John. But I think Katie probably bore the brunt of the conversations with Lucinda and Roxanne, and I don't think Roxanne talked to her for a very long time after that. She was very upset.
You told Mr. Amadeo that you weren't afraid that John would harm Katie. Do you still feel that way now?
I prefer not to answer that.
I have no further questions, Ronnie. Thank you.
So when John lost parental rights to Katie, do you understand why he was hurt?
Of course.
Do you think anybody would have been hurt in that situation?
I think that anybody could have been hurt, but I think that also have to take a look at the reason why, and do some self-reflection, and not blame the other person for your own shortcomings.
And to your knowledge, even upon being hurt and learning about this, did he ever try to do anything harmful to Katie after that?
No, because he was in jail. So he hasn't, to my knowledge, I think when he first went to jail, he wrote Katie a couple of times. And then to my knowledge, I don't think he's had contact with her afterwards. He's had some conversations with her when she's been down in Florida visiting her grandparents. But other than that, I don't think that there is much contact at all. And have not been even prior to the adoption.
Any additional cross,
No, no, the further judge, thank you.
any response?
No, we're all set. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your daughter's first name, is it Kathyryne?
It would have been, her birth name was Cathryne. And her legal name now is Katie, Katie.
Thank you. Anything further?
Nothing else. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you,
All
Judge.
right. Thank you, Mrs. Lanfear. We appreciate you zooming in today and offering your testimony.
Thank you.
Do we have any other witnesses ready to go?
Not today, Your Honor.
We will resume tomorrow morning at 10:30.
Your Honor,
Judge, we're not tomorrow. Humane Society, right?
That's Friday. We will be back Monday.
wait, what, Monday morning,
Is that September
I'm good.
1st?
September 1st?
No,
At
Monday,
10.
Monday's 31st.
Monday's,
Monday's 31st.
Got it. Okay, well then I'll see you Monday at 10:30.
that'll be good.
All rise, please.
Katie, you want us to take that exhibit back?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. As you heard, there will be no hearing tomorrow, and that would be Friday. So it's being continued on Monday, August 31st. So pop this up there. There we go. So August 31st, we shall see everybody again. Let's see, as far as today, the scheduling issue, right? An early adjournment and a dark day in the schedule gives the defense and prosecution extra time to review transcripts, cross-examination notes, and digital records. Emphasize how scheduling breaks allow both legal teams to recalibrate their witness strategies before entering the final stretch of the preliminary examination. So I guess it's just going to be 5 days. Now, as far as evaluating the witness testimony, they're going to review how the early days of testimony featuring statements from family members, the boy's mother, Tanya, and former acquaintances regarding pre-planning or statements like taking matters into your own hands form the bedrock of the state's probable cause argument, which is a powerful statement, almost as powerful as when he was talking to Pastor Donna Galloway and making the statement, "You of all people should know what I mean when I said they went home." Evaluating, so the weight of the incremental disclosures, focusing on how prior conflicting statements made by Skelton, right, such as shifting stories and handling the children over to a cryptic remarks to figures like Pastor Donna Galloway, right? I just mentioned that, and the Joanne person that is the organization that he let them go to take the kids and supposedly raise them until they reach the age of graduation. All this information is shaping their narrative for consciousness of guilt. And as we look ahead to how digital mapping, the cell phone tower data, which we haven't seen yet, should come up, and investigator timelines, right? Let's see what that looks like, will anchor the remaining portions of the hearing as the state works to lock in the probable cause requirement for the open murder charges. So I will schedule for Monday, I assume about the same time. So I'll do that. It'll be on there so you can set a notification for yourself. But I'm looking forward to this being completed and a decision from the judge, whether it be at the end of Monday or in the next later this next week, right? So let's see what happens. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please add them to the comment section here. If you tell anybody about how wonderful this was, you can also, or the case itself, let them know they can be part of the replay crew. Yeah, Sarah, I have to agree with you on that. I would think so, unless you had a really good prison job. Well, I don't know how much of prison pays, so that's one thing. But I don't know. I have to check to see the dates. When was he supposed to be released from his previous convictions and the overlap to when he was charged with this one? He was still in prison, if I'm not mistaken, before they let him out and then go after him, right? I believe they filed the charges and kept him in prison. So I'll look into a little bit more detail behind that one just for myself, and I'll share it with you on Monday. These have been short days. They haven't been doing full 8-hour days. So I don't know what to expect Monday, but I'll plan for a morning and afternoon session, so I'm prepped. Okay? Thank you. Hey, Sarah, you have a wonderful day. On to you. I will see you all later. To everyone else, please have a wonderful evening and see you on the next one.